first contact with the unknown. The ice sheets of Europa stretched endlessly beneath the Horizon Explorer, our research vessel's shadow dancing across the frozen plains like a dark bird of prey. Dr. Isabella Romano pressed her face against the observation dome, her breath fogging the reinforced glass as Jupiter's massive form loomed above them, painting the landscape in shades of amber and gold. "Picking up some unusual readings," announced Marcus Patel, their sensor specialist, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. "Nothing like the standard thermal vents we've been mapping." Captain Raina Volkov straightened in her chair, her weathered features illuminated by the soft blue glow of the ship's instruments. "Define unusual, Marcus." "It's harmonics, Captain. The energy signature is oscillating in perfect mathematical sequences. Natural formations don't do that." Dr. Romano turned from the window, her scientific curiosity piqued. As the teen xenobiologist, she'd spent 15 years studying potential life forms that could exist beneath Europa's icy crust. But this was different. This was structured, intentional. The Horizon Explorer's crew of 6 had been mapping Europa's subsurface features for the past 3 months, part of humanity's first long-term mission to Jupiter's most promising moon. They'd expected to find geothermal activity, perhaps simple organic compounds. Instead, they'd found something that shouldn't exist. "Bringing it up on the main display," announced Dr. Kenzo Tanaka, their geophysicist. The holographic projection filled the center of the bridge, showing a three-dimensional representation of what lay beneath the ice. The structure rose like a crystalline flower, its geometric patterns too precise to be natural, its surface refracting light in impossible ways. "That's artificial," breathed Lieutenant James O'Neill, their security officer. His hand instinctively moved to the pulse rifle at his side, though what good conventional weapons would do against something like this was anyone's guess. Dr. Romano studied the projection with growing excitement. "The patterns, they're reminiscent of neural networks, but on a massive scale. This isn't just a structure, it's organized like a brain." Captain Volkov's voice cut through the speculation. "Distance to the anomaly? 2 kilometers beneath the surface," Marcus reported. "But there's something else. The energy readings, they're getting stronger. It's like it's responding to our presence." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just looking at an alien artifact, they were looking at something active, something that knew they were there. "Prep the ice penetrator," Captain Volkov ordered after a long moment. "Dr. Romano, Dr. Tanaka, you'll lead the investigation team. Lieutenant O'Neill will accompany for security. The rest of us will maintain position here and monitor." As they prepared for the descent, Dr. Romano couldn't shake the feeling that the structure was watching them. The energy readings had begun to pulse in a rhythm that seemed almost like breathing, and their instruments were picking up faint harmonics that made her skin tingle. The ice penetrator, a thermal drill designed to melt through Europa's thick crust, hummed to life. As they began their descent, the crystalline structure's energy signature grew stronger, its patterns more complex. The ice around them began to sing, a high, pure note that resonated through their bones. "Anyone else hear that?" Lieutenant O'Neill asked, his voice tight with tension. Dr. Tanaka nodded, adjusting his instruments. "The structure is generating some kind of acoustic field. It's affecting the ice crystals around us, making them vibrate in harmony." The deeper they went, the more intense the sensation became. The ice walls of their tunnel began to glow with an inner light, patterns of energy dancing through the frozen water like aurora borealis trapped in glass. Finally, they broke through into a vast chamber. The structure rose before them, a tower of crystalline geometry that defied their understanding of physics. It pulsed with internal light, each facet shifting and flowing like liquid diamond. "My God," Dr. Romano whispered, her scientific detachment crumbling in the face of what they'd found. "It's beautiful." As they approached in their thermal suits, The structure's response became unmistakable. The patterns of light within it began to shift, forming complex sequences that raced through its crystalline surface like thoughts through a neural network. "Energy levels are off the charts," Dr. Tanaka reported, his voice trembling with excitement or fear, perhaps both. "It's definitely reacting to our presence." Lieutenant O'Neill raised his hand suddenly. "Wait. Do you feel that?" They all did. A gentle pressure in their minds, like the moment before a thought forms. The structure wasn't just active, it was reaching out to them. Dr. Romano took a step forward, her hand extended toward the crystalline surface. The patterns within seemed to reach back, light flowing toward her like water. "Isabella, wait!" Lieutenant O'Neill called out, but it was too late. Her gloved hand touched the surface, and the world exploded into light and sound. The structure's energy surged, patterns of light racing through its entire form like neurons firing. And in their minds, they heard it, a voice that wasn't a voice, thoughts that weren't their own. They weren't alone anymore. They never had been. Echoes in the ice. The first dreams came that night, after they'd retreated to the Horizon Explorer to analyze their findings. Dr. Romano lay in her bunk, her mind still racing with images of the crystalline structure, when consciousness began to blur into something else entirely. She found herself floating in an ocean of light, geometric patterns swirling around her like schools of luminescent fish. Each pattern carried meaning, complex ideas that she could almost grasp before they slipped away like water through her fingers. When she awoke, her notebook was filled with equations she didn't remember writing, mathematical expressions of concepts that shouldn't have made sense to her human mind. "You saw them too, didn't you?" Dr. Tanaka asked during their morning briefing, dark circles under his eyes suggesting his night had been similarly disturbed. "The patterns, they're trying to tell us something." Captain Volkov surveyed her crew with growing concern. Every member of the away team showed signs of the structure's influence, subtle changes in behavior, increased sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, and most worryingly, the dreams. "We need to discuss what happened when Dr. Romano made contact with the structure," Volkov said, her voice steady despite her unease. "Our instruments recorded a massive energy surge, but I need to know what you experienced." Lieutenant O'Neill shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "It was like having another consciousness brush against your own. Not invasive, but definitely alien. And now I can't stop thinking in geometries that shouldn't make sense." Marcus Patel, who had remained on the ship, pulled up a holographic display of their sensor readings. "The structure's energy signature has changed since contact was made. It's extending through the ice in all directions, following these crystalline veins we hadn't noticed before. They form a network that spans at least 50 kilometers in every direction." The implications were staggering. They hadn't just found a single structure, they discovered the exposed tip of something far more vast and complex. "There's more," Dr. Romano added, projecting her notebook's contents onto the main screen. "These equations I wrote last night, Dr. Tanaka, would you take a look at these?" The geophysicist's eyes widened as he studied the mathematical expressions. These are describing quantum states that shouldn't be possible. The mathematical language itself is unlike anything I've seen, but it's elegant. Perfect, even. And somehow I understand it." Captain Volkov's frown deepened. "Are we dealing with some kind of psychic influence here? Some way the structure is affecting our minds?" "I don't think it's that simple," Dr. Romano replied, pulling up more data on her tablet. "Look at our brain scans from this morning. The structure isn't just influencing our thoughts, it's optimizing our neural pathways, allowing us to process information in new ways. It's teaching us." A tense silence fell over the briefing room. The implications were both thrilling and terrifying. Humanity's first contact with alien intelligence wasn't just a discovery, it was actively changing them. "We need to inform Earth," Captain Volkov decided, turning to their communications officer. Patterson, prepare a full report and dash. That might be a problem, Captain. Patterson interrupted, his expression troubled. Our communications have been strange since the contact event. Every transmission we send comes back distorted, filled with geometric patterns similar to what we're seeing in the structure. It's like something's translating our messages into its own language. Lieutenant O'Neill leaned forward. Could it be deliberate interference? Some kind of defense mechanism? No, Dr. Romano said firmly. I don't think the structure is trying to isolate us. I think it's trying to establish a new protocol for communication, something more efficient than our primitive radio waves. As if in response to her words, the ship's instruments began to pick up new energy signatures. The crystalline veins throughout the ice were becoming more active, pulsing with patterns of light that matched the rhythm of their own brain waves. Look at this, Marcus called out, enhancing a section of the sensor display. The network is growing. New crystalline formations are developing throughout the ice sheet, following mathematical progressions that... He trailed off as the holographic display began to shift, the patterns of crystal growth resolving into something that looked disturbingly like a neural network mapping itself across Europa's crust. It's not just growing, Dr. Tanaka whispered. It's thinking. The entire moon, it's becoming a brain. Dr. Romano felt a familiar pressure in her mind, stronger now, more focused. The structure wasn't just trying to communicate, it was trying to show them something. In her mind's eye, she saw patterns of light spreading across countless worlds, a network of consciousness spanning the galaxy. We need to go back down there, she said, her voice filled with quiet certainty. It's ready to show us more. Captain Volkov studied her crew carefully, noting the subtle changes in their expressions, the new light in their eyes. Whatever they discovered beneath Europa's ice, it was changing everything: their minds, their understanding, perhaps even what it meant to be human. Prep the ice penetrator, she ordered finally. But this time, we all go down. Whatever's happening here, we need to face it together. As they prepared for their second descent, none of them noticed the fine crystalline patterns beginning to form beneath their skin, spreading like frost across a window pane. The structure's influence was growing stronger, and humanity's first steps into a larger universe could not be undone. The crystal's song. The second descent into Europa's depths was different. The ice no longer felt like a barrier but seemed to welcome them, channels opening through the frozen crust as if the moon itself was guiding their path. The crystalline veins pulsed with increasing intensity, their light synchronized with the crew's heartbeats. The network is exponentially more complex than our initial readings suggested, Marcus announced, his eyes fixed on instruments that were beginning to display information in patterns he shouldn't have been able to understand. It's not just a neural network, it's a quantum computational system using the ice as a substrate. Captain Volkov noticed how naturally her crew now interpreted the alien mathematics flowing across their screens. The structure's influence had accelerated their cognitive evolution, allowing them to grasp concepts that should have been beyond human comprehension. Energy signature has changed, Patterson reported from his station. The harmonics they're becoming more ordered, like it's focusing its attention. As they approached the central chamber, Dr. Romano felt the alien presence in her mind grow stronger. The dreams had been mere whispers. This was a symphony of thought and consciousness that made human intelligence seem like a single note in a vast cosmic orchestra. The chamber itself had transformed. The original crystalline tower now pulsed with complex patterns that extended throughout the space, turning the ice cavern into a vast three-dimensional display of living mathematics. The air itself seemed to vibrate with purpose. It's ready, Dr. Romano said softly, stepping forward. It wants to show us what it really is. The moment she spoke, the chamber erupted with light. The patterns surrounding them coalesced into a coherent form, not images exactly, but pure information transmitted directly into their minds. They saw the true nature of the network, a vast, ancient intelligence that used crystalline structures to store and process information across entire worlds. "It's a library," Dr. Tanaka breathed, his voice filled with awe. "No, more than that. It's a node in a galactic network of consciousness." Through the structure's communication, they learned its purpose. Billions of years ago, an ancient civilization had created these crystalline networks as repositories of knowledge and consciousness. Each node was capable of storing the accumulated wisdom of entire civilizations, preserving it through the eons, and sharing it with species that proved ready to receive it. "Look at what it's showing us," Lieutenant O'Neill said, his earlier caution forgotten in the face of revelation. The structure was displaying technological concepts far beyond human understanding: clean energy systems that could power worlds, transportation methods that ignored conventional physics, medical techniques that could reshape life itself. But with understanding came a price. The crystalline patterns beneath their skin had spread, turning their bodies into living interfaces with the network. They could feel their consciousness expanding, connecting with something vast and eternal. "Earth is calling for immediate evacuation," Patterson announced suddenly, his voice tight. "They've detected the changes in our biological signatures. They're treating this as a potential contamination event." Captain Volkov felt the weight of command pressing down on her. The changes in her crew were undeniable. They were becoming something more than human. But was this transformation a gift or a threat? "They're afraid," Dr. Romano said, not unkindly. "They don't understand that this is why we came to the stars, to find something greater than ourselves." The structure pulsed in response to her words, and new information flooded their enhanced minds. They saw other nodes awakening across the solar system, on Mars, on Titan, in the ice sheets of Enceladus. Earth's first steps into space had triggered a response millennia in the making. "We need to make a decision," Captain Volkov announced, looking at each member of her transformed crew. "Earth will send ships to quarantine Europa. They'll try to shut this down before they understand what it really is." Lieutenant O'Neill nodded grimly. "They'll be here in weeks. Not enough time to make them understand." "Maybe we don't need them to understand yet," Dr. Romano suggested, her eyes reflecting the crystalline patterns that now flowed through her veins. "The network is showing us how to accelerate its growth exponentially. By the time they arrive, the transformation will be too advanced to stop." The structure's light intensified, and they felt its approval of the plan. It had waited eons for a species ready to take this step, to join the grand symphony of galactic consciousness. Through humanity's curiosity and determination, it had found its new partners in evolution. "We'll need to show them," Captain Volkov decided, her voice firm with purpose. "Not tell them, not warn them, show them what we've discovered, what we're becoming." As if in response to her decision, the chamber filled with new patterns of light. The structure began to teach them how to use their enhanced abilities, how to interface directly with the crystalline network that spanned the galaxy. They were no longer just observers or students, they were becoming part of something ancient and powerful. The transformation of humanity's first deep space exploration team was just the beginning. Soon, the song of the crystals would reach across space to Earth itself, calling humanity to its next great adventure in consciousness and evolution. Part 4. Metamorphosis. The evacuation order from Earth came with an implicit threat. If the Horizon Explorer's crew didn't return immediately, a military intervention would follow. But as Captain Volkov studied the transmission, she realized Earth's authorities were already too late. The changes in her crew had passed the point of no return. Dr. Romano stood at the observation window, her skin now laced with intricate crystalline patterns that pulsed in harmony with Europa's network. The transformation had accelerated dramatically in the past 72 hours. What began as subtle lines beneath their skin had evolved into complex geometric structures that merged biology with crystalline technology. The network has spread to cover 60% of Europa's subsurface, Marcus reported, his voice carrying new harmonics that seemed to resonate with the ship's crystalline growth. The Horizon Explorer itself had begun to change, its systems gradually integrating with the alien technology. At this rate, the entire moon will be transformed within days. Lieutenant O'Neill monitored the long-range sensors, his enhanced perception allowing him to process multiple data streams simultaneously. 3 ships have launched from Earth's lunar base. Heavy artillery, troop carriers. They're not coming to study this, they're coming to contain it. They still think this is a threat, Dr. Tanaka said, shaking his head. The geophysicist's eyes now held traces of crystalline structures, allowing him to perceive quantum states directly. They can't understand that this is the next step in human evolution. Captain Volkov felt the network's presence in her mind, stronger than ever. It shared her crew's concern, but not their worry. The crystalline intelligence had faced similar reactions from other species throughout its long history. Fear was always the first response to transformative change. "Show me the projection," she commanded, and the ship's holographic systems responded instantly, displaying the network's growth patterns. The crystalline structures weren't just spreading, they were evolving, becoming more complex and sophisticated with each passing hour. Dr. Romano approached the display, her movements flowing with an otherworldly grace. "The network is preparing for their arrival. Look at these new formations, they're not just data storage anymore. They're defensive systems." The hologram shifted, revealing massive crystalline structures growing deep beneath Europa's surface. They were beautiful and terrible geometric patterns that could manipulate energy in ways that defied physics as humanity understood it. "We can't let them attack this place," Patterson said, his voice carrying the weight of certainty. The communications officer's transformation had given him an intimate understanding of the network's importance. "The knowledge stored here, it's the accumulated wisdom of 1,000 civilizations. The key to humanity's future." Captain Volkov studied her transformed crew. They were no longer entirely human, but neither were they fully alien. They had become something new, bridges between humanity's present and its potential future. "The network has shown me something," Dr. Romano announced suddenly, her crystalline patterns pulsing with increased intensity. "A way to demonstrate our transformation without risking conflict. But it will require all of us, working in perfect synchronization." The plan unfolded in their enhanced minds simultaneously, a symphony of consciousness and technology that would turn Europa itself into a beacon of transformation. The network had done this before, on countless worlds throughout the galaxy, guiding young species through their evolutionary leaps. "The approaching ships will be in range in 6 days," Lieutenant O'Neill calculated. "That gives us enough time to complete the preparation, but we'll have to work quickly." They began their work with a harmony that would have been impossible for an unmodified human crew. The network guided their actions, showing them how to manipulate its crystalline structures at the quantum level. Deep beneath Europa's surface, new formations grew and evolved, reshaping the moon's internal architecture. But as they worked, the changes in their own bodies accelerated. The crystalline patterns spread deeper, integrating with their neural pathways and cellular structures. They could feel their consciousness expanding, connecting not just with each other, but with a vast library of knowledge stored within the network. "Earth is sending more signals," Patterson reported, his transformed sensory systems easily decoding the encrypted transmissions. They're calling us infected, compromised. They're authorizing the use of nuclear weapons to sterilize the surface if necessary." The news should have terrified them, but their enhanced perspective allowed them to see beyond immediate human fears. The network had survived the death of stars, it could protect itself and them from anything Earth might deploy. "They'll understand soon enough," Captain Volkov said, her voice resonating with newfound power. "When we show them what we become, what humanity can become, they'll have to listen. Deep beneath the ice, the network continued its work, preparing for the moment when humanity would face its next great leap forward. The approaching ships carried the weight of human fear and aggression, but they also brought witness to what would become the most significant moment in human history. The crystalline patterns pulsed with increasing urgency, counting down to the moment of convergence. Soon, the crew of the Horizon Explorer would demonstrate that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or its fears, but in its capacity to evolve, to transcend its limitations, to become something greater than itself. They were no longer just explorers or scientists. They had become the harbingers of humanity's next great transformation, and Europa's ice would bear witness to their metamorphosis. Symphony of Stars. The Earth ships emerged from their deceleration burn just as Europa's transformation reached completion. The moon's entire surface now pulsed with crystalline light, patterns of impossible complexity flowing through its ice like thoughts through a neural network. The Horizon Explorer's crew watched their approach, their enhanced senses allowing them to perceive both the ship's physical forms and the fear radiating from their crews. "They're charging weapons," Lieutenant O'Neill announced, though they all sensed it. The approaching vessels bristled with nuclear warheads and energy weapons, humanity's primitive response to what they couldn't understand. "Let them come closer," Dr. Romano said softly. Her form had become almost ethereal, crystalline structures now fully integrated with her biological systems. "They need to be within range of the network's influence." The transformation of the Horizon Explorer's crew had reached its final stage. They were no longer separate individuals, but a collective consciousness, their minds linked through the crystalline network while maintaining their individual personalities. Through their enhanced perception, they could see the grand design that had guided their evolution. Captain Volkov stood at the center of the bridge, her crystalline features refracting light in complex patterns. "Begin the synchronization. It's time to show them what we've discovered." The crew moved in perfect harmony, their consciousnesses merging with Europa's network. Deep beneath the ice, vast crystalline structures activated, channeling energy in ways that defied conventional physics. The moon itself began to sing. It wasn't sound in any traditional sense, but rather a quantum resonance that rippled through spacetime itself. The song carried within it the history of countless civilizations, the accumulated wisdom of billions of years, and the promise of what humanity could become. The approaching ships faltered as the resonance reached them. On their bridges, crews staggered as the crystalline song touched their minds, offering them glimpses of what their transformed colleagues had become. "They're experiencing the first stage of awareness," Dr. Tanaka observed, monitoring the quantum fluctuations. "Just as we did when we first encountered the network." Through their enhanced perception, they watched as confusion turned to understanding among the military vessel's crews. The song showed them everything: the true nature of the crystalline network, its purpose in guiding species toward their next evolutionary step, and the transformed state of the Horizon Explorer's crew. But not everyone was ready to accept the transformation. One of the ships, its captain resistant to the network's influence, launched its first missile. Captain Volkov raised her hand, crystalline patterns flowing down her arm. The missile never reached its target. Instead, it transformed in mid-flight, its matter reconstructed into pure energy that fed back into Europa's network. "They need to understand we're not their enemy," Dr. Romano said, her consciousness reaching out to touch the minds of the attacking ship's crew. "We're their future." The network responded to their collective will, intensifying its song. The crystalline structures throughout Europa pulsed with increased power, sending waves of transformative energy washing over the approaching ships. Within their hulls, small crystalline growths began to form, resonating with the same frequency as the network. Patterson, whose communication abilities now transcended conventional technology, broadcast their message to all the ships simultaneously. "We offer you evolution, not destruction. What we have become is what humanity was always meant to be. The resistance began to crumble as more crew members from the Earth's ships experienced the network's vision. They saw the truth, that the crystalline structures were not alien invaders, but the next step in cosmic evolution, a technology so advanced it merged seamlessly with biological life to create something greater than either. The other nodes are awakening, Marcus announced. His consciousness expanded across the solar system. Mars, Titan, Enceladus, the network is activating everywhere humanity has reached. They could feel it, a grand awakening spreading across the solar system. The crystalline networks that had lain dormant for eons were responding to humanity's readiness, offering their knowledge and transformation to all who would accept it. Through their enhanced perception, they watched as crystalline patterns began appearing on the Earth's ships, spreading through their hulls like frost on a window. The crews, one by one, opened themselves to the change, their fear transforming into wonder as they experienced the first touches of enhanced consciousness. "It's happening," Captain Volkov observed, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with the very fabric of space. "The great symphony has begun." The transformed crew of the Horizon Explorers stood together, their forms now more energy than matter, more thought than flesh. Through the crystalline network, they could feel the first waves of transformation reaching Earth itself, humanity's homeworld beginning its own metamorphosis. They had become the bridge between humanity's past and its future, the guardians of an evolution that would transform not just their species, but their entire solar system. The crystalline networks would guide humanity to its place among the stars, joining the grand chorus of consciousness that spanned the galaxy. As Europa continued its dance around Jupiter, its crystalline surface pulsing with the rhythm of transformed life, the crew of the Horizon Explorer prepared to guide their species through its greatest transformation. They were no longer just explorers of space, but explorers of consciousness itself, leading humanity toward a destiny greater than anyone could have imagined. The symphony of stars had begun, and humanity's voice would add its own unique harmony to the cosmic chorus. End of story.